Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. The focus of the Democrat lamestream media's coverage really tells you all that you need to know, huh? There's so many different positive things that the media could be talking about, helping to paint an ambitious future for the nation. But instead, what do you get? You get doom and gloom, and this hyper fixation on this one little Democrat narrative. That's really what it is. Instead of talking about all the good that's happening, or even all the potential good that could happen, the mainstream media seems totally and utterly focused on the fact that Republicans have a slim House majority. It's just non-stop frickin' coverage, all of course, pushing the main point again, the Democrat narrative that Donald Trump doesn't in fact have a mandate. I'm just so sick and tired of the constant focus on the fact that Republicans have a slim House majority. Frickin' who cares? The hyper-emphasis on this one issue is incredibly telling. This is why nobody likes the mainstream media anymore. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that, and of course, let's clear the record. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so yeah, again, we're talking about this Trump doesn't have a mandate thing, because they don't frickin' stop.
It's the smallest majority at the start of a first session over 100 years, because keep in mind, a lot of people will try and say, okay, back in 1931, but keep in mind the first session then didn't start actually until I think December, and there were a ton of vacancies. So I actually went further back into the record books and said, okay, when the first section actually started, and this is the smallest since at least 1917, if not further back, because we got 219 for the Republicans because Matt Gaetz says he's not joining this Congress, and 215 for the Democrats likely tomorrow. It's pretty gosh darn tight. We're talking about a difference of, get this, just 4 seats between Republicans and Democrats, virtually no margin for error.
Oh, that's only 4 seats, the slimmest majority since 1917. They're adding so much drama to it. I mean, it's really pathetic at this point. It's obvious that they have absolutely nothing else other than this one little ridiculous talking point, and so they're clinging to it. Trump doesn't have a mandate. I guess there's no support for Trump's agenda, right? It's honestly laughable. Slim majority or not, it's still a majority. And no amount of spin can ever change that fact. What they're trying to do here is desperately diminish Trump's massive landslide victory and take attention away from the overwhelming support of Trump's policies. That's what the play is here. They're trying to act as if this is such a significant part of the story, that Republicans only hold 219 seats, but it's really not that relevant, and it's also not that shocking or surprising. There's some very simple explanations as to why this happened. First off, I think the Democrats the entire time throughout 2024 secretly behind the scenes knew that they were essentially battling for second place, and so they pumped an enormous amount of resources into a couple key races, hoping to scrape by with a few clutch wins to tighten the margin. And yeah, I think they succeeded in narrowing that gap, because the GOP establishment isn't necessarily so great at curating candidates, and they're certainly not great when it comes to fundraising or spending this money effectively. And so the idea that this slim House majority takes away from the Trump victory at all, I think, is ridiculous. If anything, it just shows that the Republicans have a bad ground game, and they're not really good at finding and promoting talent. And it's kind of hard when you have a bunch of neocon gatekeepers getting in the frickin' way. Ooh, Republicans didn't do so great in House races. That means Republicans are weak. Are you kidding me? Republicans won a majority in the House and in the Senate. In fact, Republicans have a pretty sizable majority in the Senate, which is arguably a tougher feat to pull off than winning a significant majority in the House. The House tends to shift left to right with a little bit more volatility usually. There is nothing surprising, there's nothing damning, there's nothing concerning about Republicans winning a slim majority in the House. It's still a majority, and they won quite decisively in Congress, and of course, Donald Trump totally dominated the executive race. It was a landslide victory, but they just don't want to acknowledge that fact. It's so hard for them. No, what they would rather do is make the claim that there's no support for Donald Trump, or he just barely eked out a victory here. It's such an absurd claim. This idea that there's a lack of support for Donald Trump's agenda, that is complete nonsense. Look at the actual issues. The American people overwhelmingly support Trump's proposals. According to a CNBC poll, a majority of Americans back several key elements of his platform. And let's just say CNBC doesn't usually give Donald Trump the most favorable polling data. Well, even they, in their partisan push polls, are showing significant majority support for the Trump agenda. Ooh, but there's no support behind his mandate. I mean, what a joke. And actually, really to cement the point, let's go to the most controversial part about the Trump mandate. His cabinet picks, right? I mean, there's been so much noise surrounding his horrible, ridiculous, not qualified cabinet picks, according to the media. Nobody wants to see a Pete Hegseth in an important government role, let alone a Kash Patel. That's what they tell you, right? But according to Rasmussen reports, 55% of people polled want the Senate to support his cabinet picks. 55%, meaning Republicans, independents, and probably even some Democrats are on board in this hyper-divided, extremely partisan political environment.
Does Trump's favorability measures, does that translate to who he's been selecting for his cabinet, and what specific qualities do these likely voters want to see out of Donald Trump cabinet selections?
We asked exactly that, which is closer to your belief that the president should choose cabinet officers he knows he can trust, or that he should choose cabinet officers with experience in Washington, D.C. So that's your stand-in for competency or whatever, right? Trust wins 55% to 39% among all likely voters. That's a massive margin. So even people who voted for Kamala Harris are saying, listen, he's getting to office. Let Trump do Trump.
Yeah, I don't know, but that seems like a mandate to me. The whole slim majority talking point is nothing more than a Democrat-crafted spin that's now being amplified by these media actors. They want to create the illusion that Trump lacks broad support, but the numbers are telling a completely different story. And it's obvious that the media is deliberately ignoring the actual widespread enthusiasm for Trump's policies. From border security to economic reform to national defense, Trump's proposals have resonated with people. They're not fringe ideas, they're supported by the majority of the American population. And the slim House majority doesn't change that. In fact, a House split isn't really even that unusual. It's pretty much par for the course. It's part of a long-standing American tradition of ballot splitting. Voters will often choose to create, a sort of balance of power, a kind of separation of power. And they do this on purpose, splitting their votes between parties because they want to encourage bipartisan agreement. The idea is that by splitting power, you essentially force both parties to have to come to the table and hammer out deals that speak to the interest of all people. Now, whether that's a naive idea in today's divisive political climate is another conversation, because obviously we know what the Democrats are up to these days. They've committed to this strategy of obstructionism, stop Donald Trump at every point and at any cost. Donald Trump's trying to ride the bike of the nation forward, and you got Democrats trying to throw sticks in his wheels. Their strategy has been to block, resist, and obstruct at every turn. But regardless of any of that, at the end of the day, what we're seeing is absolutely normal, and it doesn't take away from Trump's clear mandate. The House margin doesn't reflect a rejection of Trump's agenda, but rather it reflects the long-standing voter preference for divided government. The Democrats and their media pawns are simply trying to manufacture doubt where none exists. And so they're so desperately clinging on to this slim majority narrative because it's all they got and they're on the defensive. They know they lost, they know the people are behind Donald Trump, and now they're trying to spin their way out of a crushing defeat by pretending the results don't actually mean what they literally mean. And look, I'm just going to end on what I usually say in these videos. I know I'm signaling frustration, how annoying it is that Democrats continue to push these ridiculous narratives, but honestly, let them obsess over this House majority. It doesn't change anything. The obsession and the hyperfixation on spinning some sort of negative story around the Trump administration before it even starts essentially tells us all that we need to know. They're on the defensive, they've got nothing, they're grasping at straws, the movement remains strong, and Democrats are obviously getting a little bit nervous. But obviously, I wish we could live in a world where the media would act appropriately. It'd be nice if we could tune into some of these mainstream networks and hear a little bit of positivity for once. Maybe a little bit of nonpartisan patriotism would be nice. Actually spending time focused on the positive potential of this new political shift and mandate. Certainly that'd be nice for a change, but no, instead what we get is them constantly spreading the seed of doubt because Donald Trump is just not allowed to win. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.